Let's look a bit more closely at the Fountain syntax for screenwriting now. As we said, Fountain is just basic text. It's not a proprietary format. Theoretically, you can use it in any simple text editor. If that text editor does not know how to interpret the Fountain syntax, no problem. You will still have a screenplay that is very easily readable, and it's just that some elements will have a different or no indentation, and you won't see the formatting like bold and italics and such. But still, you can read it, and the format itself is platform and software independent. But when you do have a software that can interpret the Fountain syntax, then you have a beautifully formatted screenplay with all the elements in the right place. So let's look at what this Fountain syntax is and how it works. Fountain has some elements that work without needing extra syntax, and that is because the way they are normally used in a screenplay makes them easy to recognize anyway. By the way, what I recommend you do is go to fountain.io/howto and download the Fountain quick reference for the most common elements that you need. And if you want to know anything else about the Fountain syntax, go to fountain.io/syntax if you want to use a specific element and you don't know how. But don't worry, we will go through the most common ones in this video. If you write your screenplay like this in Highland 2, it will look like this when it is interpreted as Fountain. For scene headings, just type int dot or ext dot. And whatever Fountain interpreter or program you use, it will recognize this as a scene heading. Theoretically, it is sufficient to type this in lowercase. It doesn't necessarily have to be in uppercase, but it is recommendable to use uppercase anyway for scene headings. Not only because it is industry standard and expected, but also because they are easier to find this way when you are glancing over the page. Other beginnings of scene headings that will be recognized as such if they are followed by a dot are int, ext, est, int/ext, int/ext without dot, or I/e. If you want to use an arbitrary scene heading, if you want to force it, so to speak, just put a dot character at the beginning of the line, and this line will be recognized as a scene heading. Action. Basically, every element that is not considered anything else is considered an action element. Fountain will respect the number of line breaks you choose to make, whether you use single line returns or double spacing to separate two paragraphs of action. Characters. Every line that is written in all uppercase and that has an empty line before it and no empty line after it is considered a character element. Although you can theoretically indent character elements with tabs or spaces, it is not necessary for Fountain to interpret it correctly. Be aware that character names must include at least one alphabetical letter. That means a character name cannot consist only of numbers. If you need to force character name recognition, for example, if your character name must include lowercase letters, you can put the @ sign at the beginning of the line. Dialogue. Every element that follows a character element or parenthetical element is automatically considered a dialogue element. Parentheticals. Parentheticals need to be wrapped in parentheses, which is not very surprising, and they also must follow a character element. But this follows the standard screenwriting formatting principles anyway, so you don't really have to care about that. Transitions. If you really need to use transitions, what I would urge you to do as little as possible, you just need to make sure that your transitions end in TO, uppercase, and a colon. This way, Fountain knows that this element should be a transition. Also, transitions need an empty line before and after the element and need to be in all caps. Now, this is not a complete list of the Fountain syntax you can use, but it should be more than enough to get you started. 99% of the time you will be using the standard formatting input elements anyway, and for the rest of the syntax I recommend you check out the links that I provided earlier. This way you will get used to using the Fountain syntax in a very short amount of time, and you will appreciate its simplicity and platform independence.